He has his entire life.
I know you're super emotional. I just.
Of course I am. I'm terrified.
I'm telling you the political reality.
You deny. You say he lied.
You're still campaigning.
You say he lied.
Let me let
it's not over. It'll never be over.
I want to hear what Cole
It'll never be over. You wish. The pullout of Afghanistan was the pivot point. Are you kidding me?
I mean, I can read a chart and I can read a poll. I guess you can't. But the reality is when he made that decision.
Your petty insults
when he made
are so weak, dude.
So last night on CNN, Newsnight with Abby Phillips, let's just say this entire show crashed and burned because the Democrats that came on the panel, they seem to have left their common sense at the door because they emotionally just break down. They just can't handle the fact that Trump won this election, and they're still doing what made them lose the election in the first place, which was obsessing over Trump. So we're going to kick it off with Pete Dominick, who is a comedian and has Trump derangement syndrome. Watch.
If you look at the arc of the Biden presidency, he was in really good shape until August of 2021. When Afghanistan happened, he went under 40, she went under 40, and they really lived there until the end of the presidency. He's still there.
Why?
I'll tell you why. Because he ran and told us that the adults were back in charge. And that was the opposite.
Yeah, they
of
were
that.
because Donald Trump was a child.
And you know what else?
Yeah.
And you know what else?
He's a
the fact that they wouldn't give these 13 service members' families the time of
bullshit,
day.
Dude.
The time of day.
I'm sorry, but Donald Trump hates veterans. He called them suckers and losers. He did. He absolutely, despite he has his whole life. He has his entire life.
I know you're super emotional. I just.
Of course I am. I'm terrified.
I'm telling you the political reality is that when they made that decision.
It doesn't matter. What you don't admit to me that Donald Trump hates veterans.
All right. So a couple of things. Number one, yes, he is super emotional. And listen, if we were on the losing end, I'm sure we could find conservatives who would have been super emotional too. But the difference is none of us have Kamala derangement syndrome or Joe Biden derangement syndrome for that matter. They clearly have an obsession with Trump. They just can't let him go in their mind. So that's the first thing. The second thing, he sounds like they're still running the campaign. And can we just face reality already and stop focusing on Trump? It's bigger than him at this point. And of course, the suckers and losers, which is really hearsay, right? I mean, can we exercise some emotional maturity here? And if you're going to judge Trump when it comes to veterans, just judge him based on his actions. And his actions are definitely far more respectable for veterans than what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did.
You don't admit it. You deny a man, Chief John Kelly, a Marine. You say he lied.
You're still campaigning.
You say he lied. It's not over. It'll never be over.
I want to hear what Cole
It'll never be over. You wish.
The political reality is when they made that decision and everyone realized, oh my gosh, these aren't the competent adults that we were promised.
Donald Trump is.
And then when you pile on top of it the decisions that made inflation worse, it was a compounding interest of political crap over time that they could never get out of. And that's how she lost the race.
There was a bipartisan consensus to get out of Afghanistan. That wasn't the point. It was the way it was
Trump's
done.
decision to get out.
No, hold on. It was the implementation. It was the fact that they took out our soldiers first instead of last, which is you would think would be common sense. And again, it's like you said, we thought the adults were in the room. That's why people voted for Biden. A return to normalcy, a return to competence. He's a lifelong public servant. We thought we're going to get normal, we're going to get competent. And that's what
we did. We did. And if in the veterans community,
Afghanistan doesn't signal that.
Yeah. So clearly, this comedian should stick to what he's probably great at, which is being a comedian. I'm assuming he is, because politics is not his thing. Anybody on both sides would know. There's really two things that you can't argue when it comes to what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are responsible for. That the Afghanistan withdrawal was an embarrassment to the nation. There's no question about it. Did it need to be done? Sure. But the way that they did it, automatic fail. And the border. I don't understand how people like him think there's an argument there. There isn't. The results tell the story. But this guy continues to go further and further with this madness. Watch.
The wars in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, the Republican policies that led to those wars, the idea that Joe Biden made the final difficult decision, and his administration and his military leaders. I mean, you guys live on the tippy top of bullshit mountain. If you actually think that so many people think that the pullout of Afghanistan was the pivot point, are you kidding me?
Well, I mean, I can read a chart and I can read a poll. I guess you can't. But the reality is, when he made that decision,
your petty insults are so weak, dude. You have no idea. Like, I don't even understand if you hear yourself talking.
Look,
you can laugh all you want, but like, I can't read a chart. Like, it's just so hacky. It's so uninteresting.
Look, the reason that we brought this up is because that was from a Democratic.
Yeah, that's great, because I guess he did his job. I mean, he is a comedian, and he was able to make Scott Jennings laugh because of the person's stupidity, right? I mean, he's really ignorant around these topics, you know? And everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm not knocking him for his unhinged opinion. I'm just knocking him because clearly he hasn't done his research. And if you're going to defend Joe Biden and attack Donald Trump, I mean, don't use the Afghanistan withdrawal as a way to do it, and definitely don't use border security to do it either. The madness did not end there. Here's your so-called economists who at one point criticized Kamala Harris for her economic plans, got backlash, and then started bashing Trump's plans. And now she's just off the reservation at this point. Listen to this.
And for everybody out there wanting Trump to pivot or change or somehow whatever you want him to do, he just won a mandate from the American people to execute on the program that he laid out in this election. It wasn't particularly close. And I think he ought to put people in place who are going to do it. That's what the people
go
are
after
asking
his
for.
enemies. I mean, that's
not what he ran on.
Yes, he did. It is explicitly
That's not what he ran on. That's not what he ran on.
Look at what he said in the past week. He literally said that he was going to exact vengeance.
You still don't understand how you lost. He ran on immigration.
Don't say me. I'm not a Democrat.
He ran on immigration.
I'm a journalist.
He ran on inflation.
I'm not here paid to represent one of the many things
he ran on in addition to
he ran on the issues that people care about. He ran on the economy. He ran on
nobody's saying that he didn't.
Okay, guys, I already see where this is going. They're going to start saying that what Scott Jennings is saying is misinformation. And let me remind you about misinformation. So when these media outlets are claiming something is misinformation, what do you do about it exactly? Well, this is why I want to introduce you to today's sponsor, Ground News. You could check them out by going to ground.news/Devori. Okay, so I went to their website and I searched up the story, right? Donald Trump wins 2024 presidential election. And what happens is it pulls in all of the articles from the different media outlets and it organizes it across the political spectrum. So there are articles that are coming from the left, and then there are articles coming from the right. Pay attention to the headlines here. The articles on the left, I'm just going to choose one. Donald Trump addresses his supporters from Florida election night party. This was 3 hours ago. And then if you look on the right, you see Donald Trump set to return to the White House. Clearly, there is a bias already in the reporting with something this important. And that's why they have something called the bias distribution tool here on the right that tells you overall, is this story leaning more to the left or is this story leaning more to the right? Well, Ground News created a groundbreaking tool called Blind Spot, which shows you all of those stories that have been disproportionately covered by one side of the political spectrum. So if you're like me, you like to do your own research and see the full picture, go to ground.news/Devori, scan the QR code, or hit the link in my description or pinned comment and get 50% off the Vantage plan that gives you access to everything I showed you in this video. I can't stress enough how powerful and groundbreaking this tool really is. I trust it, and so should you. So go to ground.news/Devori. Don't let the misinformation from these media outlets discourage you from doing your own research. Yeah, well, you know, what's interesting is she claims that she's not a Democrat. Clearly she is, because she speaks exactly like one, you know, and she supports the talking points that they push on that show that clearly are Democratic talking points. And she's not neutral in all this. You can hear the bias in her voice. So there's that. And number two, it's just how out of touch they still are. You would think this landslide defeat, okay, because it was a landslide, You would think that would be an emotional impact to the point where they would probably say, hey, you know what? I need to reevaluate my thinking. They're very stubborn, right? They're going to go to the grave with this at some point. Until their careers are threatened, they're not going to switch up.
Run on those things, but he also ran on vengeance.
Yes.
He did also run on going after the people who went after him.
And journalists.
It was a key feature of all of his speeches.
Yes.
Scott, he literally said, I am your retribution. The Biden crime family, lock her up. Went after Sessions repeatedly for not doing what he wanted Sessions to do, which was to indict Hillary or whoever he wanted to indict.
You can want his campaign to have been about, tax reform and things like that. That is not what he said on the stump. Time after time after time.
Also
he talked about going after his enemies.
I'm heartened by the fact that the left still cannot figure this out.
Even if you just take the January 6th part of it, he made that a big part of his campaign, that he would, if he were in power, pardon those people. You can't say that that was not on the agenda. It absolutely was.
What was the campaign about? Why did tens
but do you
of
think that
millions
he's
of
going to
people
do those other things when it comes to the Department of Justice?
I don't know what he's going to do. I don't talk to him.
A big part of the campaign was being a victim. Like, that was a big part of it, was his victimhood. They're coming for you, but they're going to have to get through me. That was his whole line. That is all about the enemies list. That is all.
I totally disagree.
The deep state. This is the stuff that he talked about on the stump. Unless you just don't want to listen to him, those are his own words.
I listen plenty.
Scott, if you believe that people who violated the Capitol on January 6th committed a crime, which I would hope you would, because they weren't invited in the way they claimed they were, right? They were not there. They didn't go through security the way the rest of us have to go through to get into the Capitol. They were prosecuted. They were convicted. And now they're serving jail time. And he has said repeatedly that they're political prisoners and he is going to spring them, right? What does that tell you about how he's going to weaponize the Justice Department, and on whose behalf? On behalf of people who committed crimes for him. For him, not for anybody else.
I mean, I admire your, I don't know if I want to call it naivete or optimism that Trump is going to run on the policies you care about deregulation and tax cuts and whatnot. That's just not what his campaign was about.
Well,
that's not what he has indicated.
With all due respect, I've run more campaigns than you, and I know what campaigns are about, and I know why people walk into voting booths.
Why people walk into voting booths and what Trump plans to do when handed the presidency are two different things.
Yeah, so the arrogance of these individuals, that's what I call it at this point. They think they know better. That's their attitude. They've never won the presidency. They've never been in charge of a campaign. Right? They've never been responsible for why a candidate won the presidency. But I guess all of a sudden, they know exactly what they're talking about. And Scott Jennings doesn't know what he's talking about, right? I mean, that's really what they're saying here. The problem, again, it takes us back to what? That they're so out of touch. They're not willing to face defeat. They're not willing to accept the idea that maybe, just maybe, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. That just maybe there's a reality out there that they haven't given their attention to, and that reality would actually fill in a lot of those blanks that they keep ignoring. Now, before I go any further, if you guys have been getting value from this video, do us a favor, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. If you want to support us further, go to the link in the description below, grab yourself a t-shirt like the one I'm wearing here, or you could buy us a cup of coffee.
Tariffs, lots of tariffs. The 2017 tax cuts, he'll extend those, and taxes, gone on things like tips, payroll taxes, and income. Tara is back with us at the table. He's got a lot of things that he's planning on doing. And I mean, to Scott's point, he's feeling emboldened. He believes that he has a mandate and he wants to do it immediately. What would the impact of doing all of these things be if it is done as he wants it to be done right away?
It would be terrible. I mean, all of the things that are his priorities, whether it's global tariffs, deporting 10 to 20 million people, politicizing the Fed, devaluing the dollar, all of those things would be inflationary and or cause the economy to crash. I think the very best thing Trump could do is nothing at all. Go out, play golf, take credit for the economic trends that we already have that are already quite strong. Wages have been outpacing inflation for over a year, for example. Inflation has come down a lot. GDP growth has been robust quarter after quarter. Just take credit. Take credit for the economy he inherited and do nothing else. And that's the best possible outcome we can hope for.
But this is the same woman who claims she's not a Democrat. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing, Why would you tell them not to do anything if you've already seen that they lost the election by a landslide due to economic reasons and the border crisis? What is she, deranged? I mean, come on, read the room, lady. And so number 3, this is what they're going to do. Already, they're gearing up to say that Joe Biden is handing Trump the best economy. We know that's not necessarily true, because the better question is, for who? The best economy for who? The best economy for the ultra rich? Absolutely. Can you throw that in there if you're going to make that statement? But not for the working class, because if it was the best economy for the working class, it'd be Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States, not Donald Trump. All right, so now this video is definitely about you. What you're seeing on the screen is a gentleman by the name of Michael. He submitted a question when he bought me a cup of coffee, which you can do by going to the link in the description below. Michael had a nice little thoughtful message, and I'll just read it really quick here. He said, I just wanted to applaud all of your videos. I purposely stay away from the media and podcast pre-election as much as possible in an attempt to do my own homework and vote accordingly. However, since last night, I've gone down the rabbit hole, watching a number of videos across YouTube, both pre and post-election, after casting my vote. I just want to say thank you for all your time, effort, thought, and professionalism you put into these. What I've seen from CNN and other professional journalism sites is truly embarrassing. It is why younger voters now go online and listen to podcasts rather than watching the major news channels. That is part 1. And then part 2, he says, I had the long-winded message prior, then pushed the wrong button. Let me know what your plan is, or excuse me, let me know where you plan on taking your videos from here. Thank you again. And that is a message from Michael. So, you know, where do we plan on taking our videos in this channel from this point? We're going to continue to do the same thing, spread the truth in a common sense way. But the most important thing about this entire historic event that just took place is that we need to push for common sense discussions, debate, open-mindedness, and stop allowing the legacy media to tell us what is truth and what isn't, what is misinformation and what isn't, right? They would classify this YouTube channel as straight up misinformation, right-wing propaganda.
But what they have done in their online media ecosystem is build a radicalization engine, literally the way militant groups do around the world, that takes people from relatively low-level annoyances with the world. Why are eggs so expensive? Why is my kid learning this new thing in American history in school that I didn't learn? And then moves them through YouTube videos, through podcasts, moves them from that annoyance all the way, slowly, to a full-blown fascist politics. It's an elaborate multi-billion-dollar infrastructure, and there is nothing like it on the pro-democracy side. We don't have when a man is just lost and lonely and not yet radicalized, we don't have the equivalent of Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson to move that man in a feminist direction. By the way, we should educate men that it's actually really great to live with a strong woman who makes money. It's actually easier. Life is easier.
What they don't see coming is the same thing that happened to Blockbuster with Netflix. It's technology, the market, buyer behavior. If they don't figure out podcasts, they will become obsolete. And they are fighting it right now by doing what? Attacking us and calling us propaganda, when they are the ones that are actually spitting the propaganda, because they deliberately refused to report information that was damaging for Kamala Harris. They absolutely refused. So bigger picture here is, of course, this entire panel from that night with Abby Phillips on CNN just crashed and burned. I mean, these people out of control emotionally. Those are not the type of people you should be getting into a debate with, because they don't want to listen. They're not listening to understand. They've already made up their mind. They don't want to see it from a different perspective. They think the way that they see it is the truth, and that's final. Well, when you're dealing with people like that, the best advice is just not to deal with them at all. And that is my opinion. So what do you guys think about what that comedian had to say and how emotional he was and triggered over the statements that Scott Jennings made, even though what Scott Jennings was saying was the truth? The so-called economist who wants us to believe, after all economists said the same thing about Trump back in 2016, that he's going to kill the economy. Didn't happen. What do you think about her statements? And guys, I know I've been covering a lot of the meltdowns recently, but they're going to continue. And today, The View absolutely exploded on each other. It's as they're like at each other's throats because they can't handle this defeat. And so if you want to see that video, all you have to do is click on it because it's coming up right now.